Hello and welcome to lesson 12-5. In this lesson, we're going to work on converting metric units of capacity. Now, capacity measures how much of particularly a liquid can fit inside of a container. So think about how much juice your cup can hold or how much water fits in a water bottle. That's what we're talking about when we're talking about capacity, except for this lesson, we're going to focus on using metric units instead of customary. So let's go ahead and watch our short video lesson together and then get into our notes and our guided practice.
How do you convert metric units of capacity? Think about this question during the lesson. The most commonly used units of capacity in the metric system are the liter and the milliliter.
Can you find a liter or milliliter in the real world?
Would you measure the amount of water in a sink using liters or milliliters? Explain.
So when we're talking about the amount of liquid in a container, all right, when we're talking about liters, a liter is about the size of this large water bottle. Milliliters are basically what you use in like a medicine dropper for a small child. So if you're measuring the amount of water in a sink, you're going to use liters, not milliliters, because you want to use a larger unit of measurement.
You would use liters because a liter is a greater unit and a sink holds lots of water. Susan has 1.875 liters of water. How many milliliters is this? Which operation should you use to convert liters to milliliters?
Select your answer.
Now remember, when we're moving from a big unit to a smaller one, we're going to multiply. And the reason, again, that we do that is that there's a lot of those small units that can fit inside one bigger unit. And if you're going the opposite way, you would divide. So to go from liters down to milliliters, we're going to use multiplication.
To change a larger unit to a smaller unit, multiply. Find 1.875 times 10 to the third power. How do you multiply 1.875 by 10 to the third power? Move the decimal point 3 places to the right. So, Susan has 1,875 milliliters of water.
Okay, so let's stop and talk about this for a moment. Now, when you have a number that has a decimal point and you're multiplying it by a power of 10, you're going to move that decimal point to the right. So your number is going to become greater. So your 1.875 times 10 to the power of 3, we're going to make it jump 3 places to the right. So your decimal point is going to jump after the 8, and then after that 7, and then after that 5. And that's how they ended up with 1,875. If it was 10 to the power of 2, you would have jumped 2 places. If it was 10 to the power of 5, you would have jumped 5 places, and so on. But whenever you're multiplying by a power of 10, the decimal point is moving to the right, so the value of your numbers and the value of those digits is increasing.
Jorge has 3,500 milliliters of water. How many liters is this?
Now, for a question like this, when you're going from small to big, we're going to be dividing because remember, a lot of those small units can fit inside a big one. So we need fewer of the big ones than we do of the small ones. Now, if we're going from milliliters to liters, we're going to be dividing by 10 to the power of 3 or dividing by 1,000. Now, the way this works is basically the opposite of multiplication. So if it's 3,500, you can assume that it's 3,500.0, right? There's nothing after that decimal point, so you don't always need to write it. So what you would be doing is you would be taking the decimal point that would be at the end and moving it back that many places. So it would go back before the first 0, back before the second 0, back before the 5. So you would end up with 3.5 liters because you would be dividing by 10 to the power of 3. So the decimal point is going to be moving to the left.
To change a smaller unit to a larger unit, divide. Find 3,500 divided by 10 to the third power. How do you divide 3,500 by 10 to the third power? There is an understood decimal point after the second zero. Move the decimal point 3 places to the left. So, Jorge has 3 5/10 liters of water. Now you know how to convert metric units of capacity.
All right, let's go ahead and jump into your notes and guided practice. So here we are on lesson 12-5, convert metric units of capacity. Our focus question is going to be, how do you convert metric units of capacity? Now, the most commonly used metric units of capacity are the liters, which is abbreviated with a capital L, and milliliters, which are abbreviated with a lowercase m and then a capital L. So 1 liter is about the size of a soda bottle or a large water bottle. And 1 liter converts to 1,000 milliliters. Remember, the prefix milli means 1,000. So there's 1,000 milliliters in 1 liter. Now, our first example says a pitcher holds 4 liters of water. How many milliliters does the pitcher hold? Well, let's think about what I know. I know that 1 liter is 1,000 milliliters, and the pitcher holds 4 of these liters. So to solve this, I'm going to convert my liters into milliliters. And to do that, I'm going to multiply. So I'm going to move from a large unit to a smaller one. My 4 liters times 1,000, because there's 1,000 milliliters in 1 liter, is going to equal 4,000. So the pitcher of water holds 4,000 milliliters. Now, liters are used to measure the amount of liquid in a larger container. So think of a large container of milk, the amount of water that you can fit in a bathtub, and milliliters are used to measure very small amounts like medicine droppers or the amount of liquid that you can hold in a spoon. All right, our next example here is to put measurements in order from least to greatest. So I have 2,300 liters, 500 milliliters, 3,000 milliliters, 2 liters, and 22 liters. So what I know that I need to convert all of my measurements to be using the same unit before I can make the comparison. And I also know that 1 liter is 1,000 milliliters. So let's start converting everything to liters because the milliliters are large numbers, so we can convert everything to liters. Now 500 milliliters, I know 500 is half of 1,000, so 500 milliliters is going to be half of 1,000 or half of 1 liter. My 3,000 milliliters is going to be equal to 3 liters because each liter is 1,000 milliliters. So if I have 3,000, that's 1,000, 1,000, 1,000, that's 3 of them. So now I can put them in order. My 500 milliliters, which is half a liter, is going to be the smallest one out of my measurements. And then 2 liters. And we said the 3,000 milliliters is the same thing as 3 liters, so that would be next. And then 22 liters, and then 2,300 liters would be my next unit of measure. So you're going through from smallest to biggest. You do your conversions first, so you know what numbers you're actually working with. All right, let's take a look at some more examples before we hop into our guided practice. Convert the following measures. So here you have different measurements, and we're going to decide how to convert them from milliliters to liters or back. So 5,000 milliliters is equal to how many liters? Well, I know there's 1,000 milliliters in 1 liter. So I'm going to take that 5,000 and divide it into groups of 1,000. And that's going to leave me with 5. So 5,000 divided by 1,000 or 5,000 divided by 10 to the power of 3. Remember, those both mean the same exact thing. 10 to the power of 3 is just a 1 with 3 zeros after it, just like 1,000. And that's going to equal 5. 0 and 6/100ths of a liter. So that's, and I want to change that to milliliters. So from liters to milliliters, I need to multiply by 1,000. So 6/100ths times 1,000 means that decimal point is going to jump 3 places to the right. So it's going to jump after the next 0 and then after a 6. And since there's nothing there, we're going to put a 0 placeholder and jump it after that. So 0 and 6/100 of a liter is equal to 60 milliliters. Next, we have 2,109 milliliters, and we want to change that to liters. So if I'm going from small to big, from milliliters to liters, I'm going to divide by 1,000. So 2,109 divided by 1,000, or divided by 10 to the power of 3, means the decimal point that we understand to be at the end of that whole number is going to move 3 spots to the left. So it's going to move in front of the 9, and then it's going to move in front of the 0, and then it's going to move in front of the 1. So 2,109 milliliters is equal to 2.2 and 109 thousandths of a liter. Our last examples are when multiplying a decimal by a multiple or a power of 10, you move the decimal point to the right. When we divide by a power of 10, you move the decimal to the left. So this is just some additional practice. So I gave you examples. 23 hundredths times 10 to the power of 1 means we move the decimal place 1 spot to the right. So it becomes 2 3/10, or 2.3. If I multiply 23 hundredths times 10 to the power of 2, or 100, we're going to move that decimal place 2 spaces to the right. So it's going to equal 23. So it's going to move after the 2 and then after the 3. Now, if I'm multiplying 23 hundredths times 10 to the power of 3, I'm going to move that decimal point 3 times to the right. But I don't have a digit after the 3. There's no number there. So what I can do is I can put in a 0 as a placeholder. So it'll jump after the 2, then after the 3, and then after that 0. Now, when I'm working in the opposite direction, if I have 250 and I want to divide it by 10, I'm going to move that imaginary decimal point that I know is supposed to be at the end. I'm going to move it 1 space to the left. So 250 divided by 10 is going to be 25. For 250 divided by 10 to the power of 2, I'm going to move that decimal point 2 places. So it's going to move in front of the 0, and then it's going to move again in front of the 5. So 250 divided by 10 to the power of 2 is 2 5/10, or 2.5. And then 250 divided by 10 to the power of 3, we're going to move it 3 places. So 1, 2, 3. 250 divided by 10 to the power of 3 is 0 25 hundredths, or 0.25. Okay, let's take a look at our guided practice questions here. Number 1 says, explain how you can convert from milliliters to liters. Now, when we go from small to big, we divide. So we're going to multiply the milliliters either by 1 over 1,000, or we're just going to divide by 1,000. Either way, you're going to get to the same answer. What types of tools would you use to measure capacity? You can use a liquid measuring cup. You could use a medicine dropper. Either one of those are options to measure capacity. Now, for numbers 3 through 8, we're converting those different units of measure. So for number 3, it says 2 75 hundredths liter is equal to how many milliliters? So I know if I'm going from big to small, I'm going to multiply. So I took my 2 75 hundredths, and I'm going to move that decimal point to the right 3 spaces because it's 10 to the power of 3. So 1, 2, 3. That's going to equal, so since there's nothing here, remember, I can put a 0 placeholder there. So it would be 2,750. Now, if I have 3,000 milliliters and I want to convert it to liters, I'm going to take those 3,000 and I'm going to divide by 10 to the power of 3, or divide by 1,000. And that decimal point that would have been at the end is going to move to the left 3 spaces. So 1, 2, 3. 3,000 divided by 1,000 is going to equal 3 liters. For number 5, we have 5 milliliters that we want to 5 liters that we want to convert to milliliters. So going from big to small, again, we're going to multiply. So we're going to take that 5 liters and multiply it by 10 to the power of 3, which means we're adding 3 zeros after it, or we would be moving the decimal point that would have been after that 5 3 places to the right, and you would put 0 placeholders in those places. And that equals 5,000 milliliters. Number 6, 250 milliliters is equal to how many liters? So we're going to divide by 10 to the power of 3, or divide by 1,000. That decimal point is going to move 3 places to the left. So it's going to move in front of the 0, and then in front of the 5, and then in front of the 2. So it's going to leave me with 25 hundredths, or 250 thousandths, if you want to leave that 0 on at the end. For number 7, 0 and 27 thousandths liter is equal to how many milliliters? So to go from big to small, we're going to multiply. And that's going to be times 10 to the power of 3. So I'm going to move that decimal point 3 places to the right, and it's going to leave me with 27 milliliters. Our very last one for this lesson, 400 milliliters into liters. We're going to divide by 10 to the power of 3. So 400 divided by 10 to the power of 3, or divided by 1,000. We're going to take that decimal point that comes at the end and move it 3 places to the left. So it's going to go in front of the first 0, then in front of the second 0, and then in front of the 4. So 400 milliliters is equal to 0 and 4/10 liter. That takes us to the end of our guided practice. If you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.